So you want to cook a brisket, huh? Well, as my uncle would always say, I'm not going to blow sunshine up your ass, which is his way of saying I'm just going to shoot you straight and tell you just how it is. If you've never cooked a brisket before, it can be a daunting task to take the toughest part of the bovine and turn it into something that practically melts in your mouth. But no need to worry, I'm going to teach you every trick and tip that I know and take you through the process step by step. And just like how the ski trip I went on with the church one time where I never knew how to ski. So the first day they taught the lessons, did really well, I thought. Okay, I did okay. And then the next day my buddy decided, hey, let's take a right and go around and see where that leads us to. And you find out that it leads you all the way to the other side of the mountain, and it costs you $80 to turn around and take a bus ride to get back to the other side somehow. I don't know. And the only option to get back with the group is to take the ski lift up to the top of the mountain. Yeah, you get up there and you're on the ski lift. You look down and realize that one of your skis not all the way buckled all the way in, so you got to have your ski poles because your ski's doing this as the ski lift's going up higher and higher and higher, and you look down to what seems like an endless abyss. Then it starts snowing and you lose visibility. Ski lift's moving back and forth and all around, and you got your poles holding on there, your buddy's holding on to the middle of the pole for dear life, and you're just hoping you don't fall off. And then you get up there and you see something where it says double black diamonds. So I guess my point to you is, if I can survive going down the double black diamonds after only having one day of skiing under my belt, trust me, you can make a damn brisket. Don't do that. Yeah, I've done that before, but I had enough common sense to take the wrapper off of it. You get a nice dirty smoke on it, don't do it. So if you don't do that, you're already on the right start. So, so like the day before cook, I like to come out and get the smoker loaded up full of wood, especially on brisket when I smoke briskets, because that is the longest of the cooks that I'll have. It takes a long time. I cook it about 225, 250 at the most, and I just like to go slow, low. I figured that's how I figured out I achieved the best results. So I've got a huge cook coming up in less than 30 days. To have 4 briskets, a ton of other food, so it all has to be done at a certain time. So normally, normally what I do is I'll come out and start rolling and get it going, maybe 6 or 7, and take my time smoking it, wrap it, and then I've let it rest. You have to let it rest a minimum of 2. That's just like minimum. I've let it rest for 6, 8, 10, 12, 14. You just keep the temperature at the right mark and you'll be alright with it. But I don't have the option to rest it for 14 hours this time. So everything's got to be done at a certain time, so I got to get up rolling early in the morning. So I'm going to go ahead and load up the smoker now. And the wood we're going to be cooking with for this one is pecan. And that's what I cook with all of my briskets. So tomorrow morning, come out, turn on the natural gas, light that thing up, let it get the logs going, get the smoker heated up, and bring the brisket out. Alright, unlike drag racing with Danny Zuko, where the rules are there are no rules, it's just the first one of the Bridgeback wins, there's rules to this. And just like growing up, I kind of forgot some of those rules too. I'll probably do the same thing here. But rule number one, we'll keep to this one. You want this to be cold. Not frozen, but cold. When it gets warmed up, the fat just becomes a mess to deal with. Rule number two, anything like this, no sharp edges, anything hanging like that, is just going to burn up. You don't want that to burn up. Not only that, it's going to burn up and slough off. There's a couple of really good parts of this fat. This is the feathery part. This is the part where you bite into it. Once you cook this right, it just like melts in your mouth. And this is the nice, not so nice, hard fat. Very hard fat. Useless fat. Useless fat for most people. We're going to save those useless parts. I'm going to show you what we're going to do with it during the cook. So what you want to have are one pan for the good fat that we're going to cut off, and then a bowl for the bad fat. Now, the reason you wouldn't put those in two pans is because I don't want you to get confused and do the wrong one. So essentially the good fat is going to go in here. I'm going to put this in the top of our smoker, and we're going to allow that to render down into what's called tallow. And we're going to use the tallow when it comes time to wrap this up. The bad fat, just hold on to it. I'll show you what we'll do to it tomorrow. Things like this, they just kind of fall off because that's just what the briskets do sometimes. Just how they come. Try to get the best one you possibly can. By that I mean prime, choice is next down the rung of the ladder, and then select. You can do fine with select, but the higher quality you get, it's just like anything else, better your chances are of success. Okay, and one of the last rules is try not to flip this thing up and down and all around like a fish, because it's not. I try to just get in one side, get it cut really well, and then move on to the other side. And I will be spinning this thing around so you can see it. So we're just going to start right here at this section. I like to use a curved knife. This is that hard fat. So we're going to put that in the bowl. It's okay to cut into this a little bit. What you don't want to do is cut into the backside and skin it. Not good at all. Don't want to have anything hanging. You want it to be really smooth, somewhat aerodynamic. Think about it like that. And you can find areas where you just see where it's not really trimmed up. There's a lot of little areas hanging out there. You want the silver skin stuff off of there. If you have to dig into it, you dig into it. Because what will happen is during the cook, you'll put your rub on it, and then what will happen is you go to slice this and it just sloughs off, and then you've got a bare spot. And instead of having a nice thick layer of rub and seasoning across it, you don't want to have that. So little tags. Right now I'm going to have to flip that around to
get that piece. Now I'm determined to get it. So I want to get these off as well. If you can see that. Alright, so now moving on to this tough section of fat here. We're going to basically try to cut most of it out. You got to have some here to help support this section here. But the reality is, most of it you can just basically cut out and go. This is that hard fat. I'm going to put this in the bowl and save this. And this is where a curved knife works out really well. Alright, that's pretty much all we're going to cut out of that one, or that section. We're going to leave that there. Alright, we're all going to trim this part a little bit more. Carefully pull that out. Grab it at the end, just cut along the back side of it. And that's the seam that goes all the way through, so there's only so much of that we're going to be able to cut out. Check it one more time, make sure we didn't miss anything. We don't want any peaks like that. I want it as smooth as can be. I'm going to trim just a little bit more of that out. I want it to be smoother than that. Alright, get that, I'm going to flip it over. Okay. So now we still have some hard fat here. We've got this entire section here that we still need to kind of cut. So essentially, you kind of want to kind of like envision what you want it to kind of look like as the end result. So we want this section to be at least 1/4 of an inch thick, and this is that nice soft fat. The kind of, when you cook this thing well, it just basically melts in your mouth. So you want to be very careful not to leave any bald spots. If it happens, it happens. It's just not ideal to make this side look like that side. Another thing about this side of the brisket is to answer your question, or lots of people's questions about fat side up, fat side down, it solely depends upon where most of the heat is coming from your smoker. So if you have an offset smoker and the heat is coming in this direction, it goes across the top of the brisket because heat rises. You want it to be fat side up to protect it from the heat. And the vertical smoker that I have, heat's going to come from the bottom, so I'm going to cook it fat side down. It's not rocket science. Alright, so I'm going to cut into this slowly and carefully. And this is still that hard fat. It's really not good for anything except for what we're going to use it for tomorrow. Grab it and slowly pull it back as you're cutting it, keeping a good eye on it, looking down at it. Like I said, about 1/4 of an inch. This takes a little bit of time. Try not to get any bald spots. Once you get back here, about this section, that's the good fat you want to keep. We're going to use that to create our tallow for tomorrow. Well, there's still some hard section of it right there. We're just going to cut into just like this. You kind of want it smooth. You want it kind of straight. Not really happy with the way this section looks. When I'm not happy with it, I just cut it. I want it to look as good as possible when it comes off and get sliced up in front of everyone. I mean, having a section like this off to the side, even though it's got meat on it, it's not too appeasing. Some of these can get cut kind of odd. You really don't have too much of a choice other than to really hack away at it sometimes. This one section here, if you see this, you get that tough part of the meat where it comes in. We've already kind of cut that out. Then you've got this section here. I mean, that's just going to burn up. So you kind of have to like just sacrifice a good chunk of it. Just cut away at it. So the thing is now, so we've got this exposed, right? Which we don't want to have because it's just the way it came off. So now the best thing to do for that, we're going to cut this off. We're not going to throw it away though. We're going to season it like everything else. But there's no way that's going to last for a 12-hour cook. But what it will do is in about 3 to 4 hours into the cook, it'll be a nice snack. All right, so we can carve out some of this, but really when we go to slice it up, I mean it's not gonna be great there, and you're gonna have to discard it when you slice it up because there's no way to get that out because that's two connected tissues there. So about the only thing left to do for us with this is to address this section right here, which is kind of wonky. Some of them come like that. I'm gonna set this off to the side. There's really not much you can do about it. Trim up the ends and kind of make it as smooth as possible, and that's pretty much all we can do. So at this point, after I'm done trimming it, what I'll normally do is put it in a pan just like this, wrap it up, and put it in the refrigerator overnight. The next morning, get up, pull it out of the refrigerator, let it become the room temperature, get warm because you want to apply the rub items to it whenever it's warm, not cold. And at that point in time, once you get that put on there, it goes directly into the smoker. However, since I'm getting up at like 3 o'clock in the morning, I really don't want to deal with all those steps. And you can have the same results doing it the way I want to. So we've got it all trimmed up, somewhat shaped up. We're still going to have to shape it up when we put it on the smoker. So I've got a rub, and the thing that I use to keep the rub on and give it an extra flavor is mustard. And then I have not pickle juice, but spicy pickle juice. Now, I've used jalapeno juice before. Don't recommend that one. Didn't turn out bad, just didn't turn out great. And if I'm gonna, or didn't turn out amazing because 14 hours of cooking this thing, I want it to be amazing. So spicy pickle juice, just some regular mustard. We'll mix them together, put a paste all over it, and then pour a rub on it, or gently sprinkle it on there. The only thing is, I'm going to do one different. I've never done this. I'm going to give it a shot. What the hell? We're going to make bourbon with this instead of this pickle juice. We're going to go with a bourbon. And if you're asking me why, hell, I'll just say as far as I know, it's never been done. And to quote the immortal Burt Reynolds, well, hell, that's the reason, son. Shit. What's the worst that's going to happen? Mix it up, pour it on, lather up. This will help hold that rub on it way better than just sprinkling it all over it. Stay. Now when you're doing this, I strongly suggest you use your dominant hand instead of your left hand to sprinkle this on. Otherwise you may look like me and just throw it everywhere. But hey, degree of difficulty, right? You can smell the bourbon on it. I'm curious to see how this works out. I've never known anybody pour a bottle of that on a bourbon period on a brisket. Much less a bottle of that. Want to move it around. We want to pack the sides in. We'll do this again tomorrow morning. Look, it's about having fun. Life is too short not to have fun. This one I don't need anymore. Pour the rest of our bourbon mustard concoction together. Massage it all in. Get everything nice and covered. Yeah, I know. My first bourbon, my first brisket recording, and I decided to throw bourbon on it. What the hell? At the end of the cook, I'll be able to tell people it tastes great, or yeah, you don't want to do that. Stick to the pickle juice. You know what? I'm going to stick with my left hand, even though I just washed my hands. Let's see. Here we go. Want that nice thick crust. That's not just salt and pepper. Salt, pepper, granulated garlic, coarse black pepper, and Lowry's. And without the coarse black pepper and without the granulated garlic, you don't get that much of a rise of on your rub. Because if you use garlic powder, it's really thin and fine. And the same thing if you just use like regular pepper. So coarse and kosher salt. And you can see the texture, I'm sure, from there. Or maybe not, but you'll see it tomorrow. All right, I'm gonna wrap this thing up and take care of things and see what she's. That's what she does. All right, thanks.
Good morning. First thing we'll get going with is using some spray oil to get the inside of it seasoned. Make sure the racks are basically coated very well. Makes everything a lot easier to clean up. Alright, gonna pull the damper, get this air flowing. You're ready to turn on the gas and light this fire. In the past, with those matches, after we get the gas going at it, after one incident, that became very problematic to continue doing so. we'll let that go for about, well, it really just depends upon whether how seasoned the wood is. If it's really dry, maybe 45 minutes to an hour. If it's wet, it takes a little bit longer.
Alright, we've allowed this to come to room temperature. See, I've got it kind of set up so it gets more airflow, so it'll happens a little bit faster. We have the pieces of brisket that we cut off. Had a lot of meat to it, just to round it off. We're going to cook that. We're going to have it for breakfast this morning. I'll show you how we'll make that in a little while. And then we have the fat, the good fat that we cut off, beef tallow. And our bad fat just wouldn't fit on the table. So hey, I'll show you how we're going to handle that when we go out a little bit later today. But for now, you're ready to take this thing, put it out there in the smoker. I'm going to reuse this pan. We're going to put it as a fill it full of water and some apple cider vinegar. Bump up the humidity in the smoker, helps the cook go a little faster. And that's pretty much it. Breakfast. So we've got our small pieces of meat that we cut off, basically to make the brisket look a little bit more aesthetically pleasing. Got that sliced up. Sauteed some peppers. I've got the eggs at room temperature. Cheese. I'm going to show you how to make what I think is a perfect scrambled egg. When doing eggs, you can do them in the pan, but it kind of makes a mess whenever you get a chunk in there. So it's also best practice. Crack it on a flat surface. Dump it in there in a bowl. Don't want to crack it on the edge. And then if you happen to have a chunk of the shell go in there, you can always use the other one to reach in there and scoop it out. At this point in time, put some seasoning on it that's your favorite. And just whisk it up so it's nice and beat. And that part's taken care of. Butter and butter. So we're going to take 2 tablespoons. We're going to put it in the skillet, heat it up. Once that's nice and warm and melted, we're going to pour eggs in there and just let them sit for a little while. Okay. Alright, got our non-stick skillet. Got our butter melted. 2 tablespoons. Just going to pour the eggs in at this point in time. Going to let it sit there. Really don't want to move it around a lot until the edges start to kind of curl up a little bit there. Distribute it across the pan. At that point in time, just want to like move it towards the middle. Kind of move it around. Cooking this over a low heat, not a big rush. One key element to really make it creamier is to add more butter. Add about a tablespoon, have it chopped up, have it all kind of get melted in there. Now, one key tip about eggs is that you kind of want to pull them before they're firm, because they're going to keep cooking. So I'll get ready to do that, and I'm going to put the peppers and the brisket back in the skillet to warm it up, and I'll show you what it looks like afterwards. Alright, and there you go. That's what we do with the leftover brisket in the morning. We don't want to waste any pieces of it, so make a breakfast out of it, enjoy it. You can see the smoke ring going around that piece there. If you make this, hope you enjoy it, because I know I'm going to.
Couple things to discuss. Spraying. And you need to spray this. We're about 4 hours into the cook. That's normally when I start spraying it. Spray it about every 45 minutes to an hour. You want to spray the meat, not the fat. I repeat, this is important. You want to spray the meat and not the fat, and make sure it remains moist. The mixture that I have in here is basically 2 parts of apple cider and 1 part Worcestershire sauce. So as far as the apple cider goes, you can use apple cider vinegar, you can use apple cider, you can use hard apple cider. Probably won't come to no surprise. I'm using hard apple cider. Yeah, I mean, I'm the person who just made a bourbon brisket, literally, and put bourbon in my whipped cream. Look, you guys know what you signed up for. That's all I'm saying. So I'm going to pull it out. You see it's getting nice and dark. Just want to spray it all over. Slide it back in. And if you're asking if I'm going to use all this wood during this, the answer is probably yes. Yes. Well, one thing we need to discuss is the stall. Now, for years, I didn't think it was real, because I was cooked normally around 275 and just blew right through the stall. Friends would mention it to me. I kind of figured it was kind of like Ghost. But once I started cooking around 250, 225, I started believing in it. But like I started to believe in Ghost after I stayed in Hotel Pennsylvania and saw that they started moving stuff around right in front of me. But that's a story for another day. So what is the stall when it comes to cooking a brisket or a Boston butt? Essentially what happens is you got all that connective tissue, you're slowly cooking it, you have what's called evaporative cooling. Now I'm not going to go all into science. Can if you want me to, just choose not to do that outside of my day job. But what we're going to talk to you about is basically it's very simple. If you've ever poured rubbing alcohol on your skin before, and you feel that cooling sensation that comes with it, use that a lot for, say, dogs that are overheated. If you put some alcohol swabs and put it on their paws, it'll help them cool down because it's evaporative cooling, and that's all it is. But it cools. So you have a point in time where you get this piece of meat up to about 160, 165. 165 seems like the magic number. And so it begins to cool, and you kind of hit what's called a stall. Now, there's 3 ways to deal with the stall that I use. One, you can wrap it about 165, 170. You wrap that thing up, and you can wrap it up with aluminum foil. You can wrap it up with butcher paper. I prefer butcher paper. You wrap it with aluminum foil. You might as well just take it and put it in the oven, because you're not going to have any smoke penetrate that aluminum foil. We wrap it up in butcher paper, however, smoke will continue to infiltrate the paper and add more smoke to your brisket. The second thing to deal with it is just to keep on keeping on, and eventually it'll push through the stall. It'll just push through. It may take you, I've seen it take 4 hours to do it, but it will get through eventually. And then the third way, you hit that stall, you crank that thing up to about 275 until it pushes through and hits about 180. Then you can drop that temperature back down to 250, 225. You'll be just fine. Temperature. One of the key aspects of this is about 5 hours. Depends on how hot you're cooking it. If you're going 275, about 4 hours. If you're going 250, 225, about 5 hours. 5.5 hours, start checking the temperature. Now I've seen people do this in multiple different ways. I'll tell you what I do is I just take a simple digital thermometer, poke that thing in the middle, because that's where you're kind of looking for that temperature to be, is in the middle. I found that if you just use the point, you're going to burn it flat, and if you use the flat, the point's not going to turn out well. I've also seen it where somehow people have like 5 or 6 probes coming out of that thing, like it's a damn weird science experiment. But you know, I hate to tell everybody, Kelly LeBlanc's not stepping out of this thing. Okay, just a couple of jabs in the middle. You're looking for that thing to hit about 165, 170. We're going to pull it, we're going to wrap it, and we're going to go through that process. Let's see where she's at now. A lot of resistance means definitely nowhere near. Alright, we got a long ways to go. The good thing is we have plenty of time to get there. While we're here, man, it smells good. And there's our beef tallow up there at the top. Getting some smoke on it, rendering down that fat. One thing to keep in mind, it doesn't really matter what you're smoking on. Whether it's an offset smoker with wood, charcoal, whether it's a vertical smoker, whether it's an electric smoker, you're going to prepare the meat the same way. You're going to care for it the same way. Whether you choose to wrap it or not, once you hit 165 to get over the stall, or push through, or use the other 3 methods, or the 3 methods that I discussed, makes no never mind. You're going to season, you're going to take care, you're going to prepare the meat the same way. And when it comes time to eat it, if you do all those things, it's going to be fantastic. Just check the temperature. We're about 150 at that point. 145, 150. I normally pull off the beef tallow, let it kind of cool a little bit, and then bring it back out when it's time to wrap. Strainer, jar, beef tallow. Just want to strain it in like this. You don't want the burnt pieces in there. Don't want it all to come falling out like that. Okay, that's it. Now we want to cool this, and then we're going to use this when we wrap our brisket. Time to wrap it up. I'm going to roll out a butcher paper. A lot. The wind's blowing. That seems like a close enough amount. About the same equal distance if you can get it. Alright, this next part is very important.
because you want to spray the paper down where you're going to put your brisket at. We're going to start with this end, which means we're going to slide it down some. Just don't want it blowing away. All right. What we're going to do is spray it down liberally with your spray. You want it to be as pliable as possible, because when you put it on there, you want to be able to move it around, make it tight. And if it's really hard, it's almost impossible to do that very well. And you don't want to wrap it loose. And if you're using aluminum foil, you don't have to do this at all. All right. Wish you could smell that. Close the door on that and keep the heat in. This is going back in there. Alright, so basically, I'm going to bring it around. I'm going to crease this. It smells amazing. Alright, and then you want to crease this, which means you're going to have to go around the other side and spray it, which is fine. Just want to make sure it's all wet. And over here is a long length of this. We don't need all of it, but it's better safe than sorry. You can always cut some off, but you can't ever grow it back on. Alright, bring it in. I'm going to fold it over, nice and tight. And at this point, you carefully flip it over. Slowly pull it, flip it over again. You take this ending part, and you flip it over just like this, and then back in she goes. Now, at this point, my experience is you don't have to keep putting the fat on the fire. Although, if your fire runs low, it definitely helps kick it back up. But it's not, the flavor is really not going to penetrate the butcher paper like it did when it was unwrapped. So it's up to you, whatever you want to do with it. We're going to let it cook for another 2 hours, and then I'm going to put a digital thermometer into it, and I'm going to monitor it from there, just right in the middle. Like I said, this is not a weird science experiment. Our main target number is 205. We've got it set on the thermometer. It'll start beeping and let us know exactly when it hits that number. Right now we're about 190. Still rolling, but 205 is when we're going to take it off, bring it in, and prepare our final wrap while we let it rest. All right, we hit 205, so now it's time to pull it, unwrap it, and let it cool till it reaches about 160. And once it hits 160, then we're going to rewrap it with a beef tallow, but we'll go over that a little bit further in depth once we pull it out and get it unwrapped. So. It's a bit like Jello at this point. And it smells divine. Be very, very careful with it. All right. So this time we'll take it in the house, set it up, let it cool for a little while. We've got to hit it down to 160 before we can rewrap it, because what we really don't want it to do is get any hotter than 205. This thing smells divine. I took a towel that we had created earlier. We had it at the top of the smoker. Once it hardened up, I put it on the bottom of the paper. The rest of the tallow I'm going to put across the top of it. Then we're going to wrap this thing up and let it rest for at least 2 hours. Normally I go anywhere from 6 to 14. For this cook, going 2 hours, trying to hit a certain time to have this done by. And so here we go. And if I didn't tell you, the temperature we were trying to hit to get it to rest is 160. 160 is a great temperature. Do it at 165. If you really don't want to leave it wrapped once it hits 205, you want it to cool off, because you don't want it cooking anymore after that. Just by that temp, that's like the magic temperature for melting all that connective tissue in the brisket. So basically, we're going to put a little more flavor into it by doing it like this. Putting this tallow all across it. As you see, it's going to get warmed up. It's going to melt in a little bit. All right, and then we're going to wrap this thing up. If you have it in liquid format, you just pour it all over it. But it's going to liquefy anyway. So at this point, same thing as before, same principle. Tight, tight, tight. That's the key. Brisket rested for over 2 hours. Now it's time to slice it up and see how this newfangled experiment with bourbon comes out. So first cut we're going to make here is at the end. See, nice smoke ring. We're going to cut this into chunks. Try this.
Very good.
Definitely taste the difference with the bourbon. It was amazing. I will definitely be doing this again. So when it comes time to cut it, cut the flat, usually about the width of a pencil. And that's pretty much it, guys. I gotta tell you, I'm looking forward to eating this. Oh my goodness, this is amazing. If you see this section here, all the fat just coming out of it, it's perfect. Perfectly done. One thing we'll do on this side is kind of like cut out this fat because we're not going to serve that to anybody. Most of that is nothing but fat. And so normally we go from here to there. But I want to taste this real quick because this is where the best cuts come from. You don't want to keep this fat, this part. Definitely want to taste this part. Oh my goodness. The bourbon gives it an extra flavor that I never thought would be possible. I know I'm talking with my mouth full, but what the hell. I got another vote for it as well. Look, I strongly suggest you try this out because this is amazing, and the pickle juice is fantastic. But that bourbon gives it a whole nother level. Oh my goodness, I'm going to be doing this every time moving forward, I think. If you like the video, you want to see more of them, like and subscribe. If you don't, eventually I'll get the hint. If you have any questions, feel free to hit me up at Cooking with Wilson. Instagram, Facebook, Gmail, YouTube, whatever floats your boat. All right, you guys take care.
Oh, so the ski trip, yeah. So I think I was 13 at the time. My grandmother, my aunts, all big in the church. Um, Even though they all lived right next to each other, there was no carpool, and everybody took their own vehicle. So Sunday morning, Sunday evening, Wednesday at the church, and after church on Sundays, everybody would go to somebody's house and eat. So anyway, I'd never been snow skiing before. Always wanted to go and try it out. It looked like it was difficult, so we took a trip up to Colorado, Breckenridge, and didn't know how to ski, so they put us on a little bunny slope. Learned how to ski. Thought I did pretty good. I fell down a lot of times that day, but it was fun. And so the second day, my partner that I would gone started hanging out with there, he'd gone skiing countless times before, and they'd gone to Breckenridge. So we were going down. He's like, "Hey, let's take a right." you know, and they basically had told us, hey, look, don't go in that direction. You know, you want to stay in this area here of where we're skiing at. So we're young. We take a right, go see what's over there, and we end up somehow on the other side of the mountain. And you know, we had our ski passes. We were kind of confused. We're like, okay, how do we get back to the other side? And so I guess somebody told us that, you know, it'd be like $80 for both of us to get on the bus ride and then go back to the other side. And neither one of us had $80, and neither one of us had enough damn sense to keep the phone number of the place we were staying at in our pockets. 13 at the time. What do you expect? Well, yeah, kids. So, but we had the ski passes, and they were like, well, just go up to the top and you can go down the other side. Well, he was all for that because he had been skiing countless times before and he was really good at it. I was not. So I remember walking over to the ski lift, and lo and behold, if there wasn't somebody that was hanging on for dear life as they were coming down on the ski lift. And I don't know how it happened, and really it wasn't, they weren't that high up. Maybe they were 15, 20 feet up. But they were hanging on somehow for dear life, screaming, and they sure enough fell. And it did not look like that felt good. That stuck in my head. And I'll tell you why it stuck in my head in a moment. So we finally get on the ski lift. It picks us up. And I'm like looking up, and we're going up like this. And I'm not a huge fan of heights whatsoever. And I'm looking up at this thing, and it's beautiful. But then off in the distance, it's like getting cloudy. And so somehow about halfway up, I refused to look down. But the one time that I did, I noticed that my back of my ski in the back part wasn't clipped in, and it was just been dangling there the entire time. So I'm kind of freaking out about this because I'm not going to walk down the mountain. And I was a kid at the time. I had no idea. They probably could have put me in one of those toboggans and taken me down. Some professional could. I don't know. I don't know how it works. I don't know how that works. So I'm like got my ski poles like this, holding on for dear life, hoping that I don't fall off. All of a sudden, the wind starts to pick up on this thing, and we start swaying. And then the visibility goes to near nothing because it starts snowing. And then I'm thinking, oh my God, I'm going to fall off this thing. Buddy's holding on to the middle pole like it's like for his own dear life. And I'm sitting here doing this, leaning back, having to look down, mind you, down it seemed like an endless abyss. And then praying, please see me through this. So finally get up to the top, come off this thing, and you can't see 10 to 15 feet in front of me because it's snowing so bad. But I can make out this sign, and it had 2 black diamonds on it, double black diamonds. So having one full day of skiing under my belt, I graduated with a big boy class apparently, and I had to go down to double black diamonds to get back to the group. Now, mind you, I took it slow. I didn't fall down one damn time going down there, and skied right up to the resort. Went in and called it a day. No, I didn't fall down one time going down there. Like I said, I did take it slow. But the next day, you know, and once again, I'm 13. I'm a lot more humble now. But at the time, I was telling my buddies, I'm double black diamond certified. I went to the top of the mountain. We came down. I didn't fall down one time. Well, there's things in life called karma. We'll come back and get you. So the next day we're going down, and I'm flying. I got all the confidence in the world. I remember coming down this hill. I was going as fast as I could. This person cut in front of me. It was a young kid. I move out of the way because I'm not going to fly over a kid or anybody else if I can help it. And I turned and I just went to rolling. End over end over end over end. And last thing I remember is seeing my leg come across and hitting. And then everything just went white. So I wake up to somebody scraping the snow off of my goggles, asking me am I okay. There's like 20-something people around me at this time. Now granted, I'd kind of come to a little bit before the snow started coming off, and all I saw was a bright white, and I thought, for a moment there, I thought, well, I think I'm dead. I don't know if I've hit a tree, I don't know what the heck happened. But they're scraping it off, and they're going, is he alive? Is he alive? And I gotta tell you, that was one good life lesson on how to be humble about things. And I still remember that and carry it with me to this day. Anything else I learned from that? Yeah. If you're on a church trip, never buy a sweater that says ski naked. They didn't care for that too much.